whole host of goalkeepers here.
Can anyone play centre-back?
Vicario, Whiteman, Austin, Fraser Forster, Hugo Lloris. You do imagine Hugo Lloris will be gone. So that will leave us with 4 keepers. You don't imagine Brandon Austin or Alfie Whiteman will see any sort of minutes. And even now we're at the Carabao Cup, you don't really expect Forster to play any minutes, to be honest, but Forster will be our backup with Vicario as number 1. I don't have too many problems with the goalkeeping situation.
No, I like Vicario. I think he's started life for Spurs really well. Forster, look, he's not my favourite goalkeeper. I think he had a decent game against Fulham before the penalties. So if need be, if he has to step in for a few games, I'm not too unhappy about that. So the goalkeeping situation is fine with me. It's not a bad situation.
Oh, and by the way, Romano has just tweeted 4 seconds ago saying Trevor Chalobah stays at Chelsea.
So that deal is definitely off now. There you go. No centre-backs. Is Ryan Nelson available? Ryan Nelson, anyone?
What about that Victor Nelson from Galatasaray? Bring him in. Straight swap for Ndombele.
Ledley King, can he fill in for a few games?
We got Michael Dawson on the
You know what?
well.
If you can get Ledley King fit, I'd rather him than Eric Dyer, honestly.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, same with me. But in terms of the centre-backs, this is what we're dealing with going into the season. 5 options: Davinson Sanchez, Coutinho Romero, Mickey van der Ven, Eric Dyer, Ashley Phillips, potentially Alfie Dorrington as well. But look, you've obviously got 2 great players there in Mickey van der Ven and Coutinho Romero. Ashley Phillips is a complete unknown quantity. And then Eric Dyer and Davinson Sanchez are the odd ones out. I mean, Eric Dyer really is the odd one out because he's just not been seen whatsoever. At least Davinson Sanchez has had minutes this season. He came in against Brentford on the first day for the concussed Coutinho Romero. He played the Fulham game as well. But Dyer hasn't even seen a bench appearance, never mind minutes on the pitch. So I don't know what we're doing here with Eric Dyer.
Yeah, and I wonder what it's going to look like if he's in the squad, not getting picked at all, considering he was a valuable member of the squad, for the last few years, and he probably sees himself, probably saw himself as one of the leaders in the squad and a main player. Conte said that he could be one of the best centre backs in the world in his position, like 18 months ago. He was in the England squad not so long ago. When was it? It was 6 months ago or so. He was in the England squad. Yeah. So having him just kind of hanging around the squad, not being picked at all, it can't be good for him, and it can't be good for the morale in the squad either, can it? I'm kind of a bit worried about that situation coming around, and him just kind of warming the bench, not even warming the bench, but just basically being ousted from the squad for a year. Surely that's no good for him as well. So is it a case of the club coming to an agreement with him with his contract, but they have to do that in the next half an hour or so before the window shuts if he wants to find a new club this season? So it's a completely
unless he goes to Turkey or Saudi.
Yeah, unless he goes to Turkey or Saudi, I guess. But I don't know if he'll want to go to any of those places. So I think that's a real concern because you want to create a tight-knit group, and it's hard to do that when you've got someone like an experienced international like Eric Dyer just not being picked whatsoever. Like, it's hard to that negativity not to seep in sometimes, and those things don't get quantified in football, like team spirit and morale and of that family feel that Ange's trying to foster, and having situations like that just isn't helpful. And not even to couple with the fact that we do have to rely on him. Like, I'm so worried about his pace when we're playing a high line against pacey forwards, which pretty much every Premier League team has in this day and age. Fast players in the forward line. So let's just hope we don't ever have to rely on him. But at the moment, we might have to if injuries happen. So it's a bit of a worry. I, for one, would rather try and bed in Phillips and Dorrington, but then on that situation, you've got to manage it, because if they're not ready, you don't want to put them in and just kill their confidence. And what happens if you put them into a game where you get battered 5-0 because they're making mistakes and they're getting bullied by forwards? That's you don't want that situation either. So it's a tough situation to manage for Ange Postecoglou, but he should never have been put in this situation.
Of course he shouldn't. I mean, we're letting another manager down, to be honest. I know we're going to play the least amount of football that we've probably ever played in a Premier League season for a long time. But literally, I keep saying it, one injury in the centre-back positions and we're literally out on our knees. It's ridiculous to be in this situation once again, Tottenham Hotspur. But let's look at the left-backs. We've got Destiny, Ryan Sessegnon and Ben Davis. And again, one injury to Destiny Udogie And the left back situation is a complete mess, unless Van der Ven maybe can move to left back. But then that leaves us with the situation at centre back.
If we had another centre back, it wouldn't be such a problem, but we don't. So you can't really do that with Van der Ven. Ben Davies didn't have a very good game against Fulham. I think when it comes to Ben Davies, if you had like a Porro on the other side, maybe it'll be less of a problem. But
they'll just target him every single time.
But then you have Van der Ven to help.
Pacey player, you do have Van der Ven to help, and I guess Adama Traore was giving Ben Davies a torrid time, but Van der Ven did help quite a lot in that case. But I mean, you need better. And we're just not doing Ange, the credit that he deserves and giving him the players that he deserves to work with. Again, the backup players, the fringe players, are just clearly not good enough in these positions.
I do agree, but I do think left back, in terms of having a backup left back to Udogie, having Ben Davies as a backup left back to Udogie is not as much of a problem as the other areas. That is something in probably next summer, or probably not in January, but definitely next summer we definitely have to address. I think it's probably enough for now. I think considering we don't have that many games, hopefully Udogie can stay fit. Maybe Sessegnon could do a job. You never know once he's back from injury. But I'm not gonna focus on that. I'm not gonna rely on that. But I agree. We're in a similar situation, but I don't think it's as bad having Davis. I think he can do a job here and there if need be. Ben Davis, and I believe Dyer can't.
I actually think, like, if Destiny gets injured, why not just shift Emerson over to the left-hand side? I would actually prefer that than Ben Davies or Ryan Sessegnon, even though Ryan Sessegnon's got a long-term injury. But I'd prefer to see Emerson shifted over to the left.
Yeah, potentially. That could be a solution as well.
But let's look at the right backs. The right backs not looking too bad. Emerson and Pedro Porro. I'm happy with that, to be honest. I don't really have too many problems with that. I like that they give us different kind of things as well. Maybe in a game where we need to be really defensively solid against like the Arsenals or the Man Cities, you could play Emerson, and Porro has been doing really well the last couple of games. So I'm very happy with that. Yeah,
one of the only positions where we actually have good depth. We have good starter. We have good competition. Ange must be loving the right back slot at the moment, because it's just one of the only positions he doesn't have to worry about.
Look at these midfielders. We got 9 midfielders on our books coming into the season, from Harvey White, Ollie Skip, Gio Lo Celso, Pepper Sarr, James Maddison, Yves Bissouma, Rodrigo Bentancur, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, and Tanguy Ndombele. The players that are not going to see any minutes there are going to be Tanguy Ndombele and Harvey White. You've got Ollie Skip on the fringes. You got Højbjerg on the fringes. Bentancur is itching to get back, apparently. The favoured 3 at the moment is obviously Maddison, Bissouma, and Sarr. But I think you're going to couple Maddison with Giovanni Lo Celso, couple Bissouma maybe with Bentancur or Højbjerg, or Bentancur with Sarr and Bissouma with Højbjerg. So that does leave maybe Skip as maybe an odd one out there, but I'm not too sure about that. He hasn't really shown much in an Ange system so far. But Ndombele, we need to find a resolution for. Harvey White, I mean, he's just been here for too long, and he never gets any sort of serious minutes, so he needs to go. But apart from that, I'm fairly happy with the midfield options.
Yeah, I'm fine with the midfield options. I think we got good variety. It would have been good to get someone like Conor Gallagher through the door, just to add a bit more offensive ability, because you've got Lo Celso and Maddison who can play that 10, but in terms of the 8s, look, we've got Bentancur, we've got Skip, and we've got Sarr, all very good players. But whether they're as good as someone like a Gallagher in and around the penalty area, I think Gallagher would probably be an upgrade on that kind of situation. So it would be good to have someone with a bit more technical ability. But you know what? Bentancur's a fantastic midfielder. Højbjerg's a good midfielder. Sarr's been brilliant so far. So I'm not too worried about the 8. I'm more worried a bit about if Bissouma gets injured, who's going to play the 6. Højbjerg's been playing that role so far, but whether he can do that role on a long stretch of games, whether he's going to provide what kind of Bissouma can provide, is big question marks about that. So I think a backup to the 6 is a bit of an issue. Skip can probably do it as well, but just no one offers anywhere near what Bissouma can do. But then again, if you're signing someone who can offer what Bissouma can, then it's going to be very difficult to bench them as well. So I'm happy with the midfield options. I'm not going to be downhearted about it. I think we've got good variety, and especially when Bentancur gets back fit as well, I think we've got a really good midfield.
Moving on to the wingers, Brian Hill ended up staying at Spurs. We got Decky, we got Brennan Johnson, Heung-min Son, Manuel Solomon, Ivan Perisic. Very left heavy in terms of team players' favoured position. So you've got Perisic, who's a natural left. You've got Solomon, who's a natural left. Son, who's a natural left. And Brian Hill, who is a natural left as well. Kulusevski and Brennan is both natural rights. And I'm happy that we brought in Brennan Johnson because we needed another natural right winger in the squad, in my opinion. You're looking at Heung-min Son potentially to move central. Kulusevski, could he play on the left? I mean, if Son does move central, who would you see the first choice wingers being?
At the moment, it would be Perisic. On the left. Obviously, I think Kulusevski at the moment probably has to show on the right. I know we've got Brennan Johnson through the door, but he's going to have to earn his place. And he might be able to do that. I don't think he'll be able to do that straight away because I think Kulusevski is a very good player. And also in terms of how Ange likes to play the system, I think Kulusevski can do it. I am a bit worried about the left-hand side. I think we've got three good players there, but then all three of them, in terms of how Ange likes to play the wing system, I don't know. I think Perisic has been good when he's been coming off the bench and maybe for cameos in 20 minutes. But if he has to start games, I do question whether he's going to be up to it, to be honest. And he had a very bad performance against Fulham. I think he thrives maybe when he's playing against tired legs and the space is opened up a bit. But I do think he's still a good player. He still has his qualities. But I think age is definitely catching up to him in terms of his physicality and his ability to beat a player.
Perry is definitely one to come and make an impact off the bench out of those for sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to see him start on a consistent basis.
Solomon, I've got question marks about Solomon, why we signed him, to be honest, because if we the only reason we should have signed Solomon is we really believed he's a midfielder, a winger who can make a serious impact on the first team straight away. And especially he should be a midfielder who we see as above someone like Perisic, like in the pecking order. If we have Perisic at the club and then we sign a winger on a free transfer, you surely have to believe that he's better, that he's at least better than what you've got right now because you're desperate to sign someone. So the fact that he's been continually picking Perisic over Manuel Solomon at the moment is a bit of a worry. Hopefully that situation can change, but he's now definitely not going to get a look in on the right because Johnson's there. So even if Kulusevski needs a rotation option, Solomon was doing that job before, but that's not going to be an option now because Johnson's there. And on the left-hand side, it's just depending on how we see Son. If Son's going to continue to play on the left and then Perisic is coming on for him, where is he ever going to get game time? Now, if Son moves in centre, maybe there's an opening for him on that left-hand side and potentially if he can overtake Perisic, I can see him getting game time, but he has to be showing a bit more right now as well on the pitch if he's going to earn that spot. But at the moment, it just looks like a bit of a pointless signing, to be honest, when I look at it. And I questioned it at the time, and it's seeming more and more pointless at the moment, but it is very early days. Let's hope he can kind of show he's better than Perisic and start getting more game time and maybe earn some minutes on that left-hand side. Am I delighted with the winger options? I'm pretty happy. I'm happy. I think we can improve in the future, and I envisage us dipping into the market potentially down the line. But I think for now we have more than enough to move forward.
Now Brian Hill is here as well. I really want to see him make an impact. I want to see him get some minutes because how
is he going to get minutes?
Yeah, I know. Maybe he gets minutes. He's another one that gets minutes if Son can move centrally. I mean, who do you think's a better player, Brian Hill or Manuel Solomon?
Who do I think is a better player? Probably.
Or who could give more to the Ange system as well?
It's difficult to say. I think Solomon has a more explosive pace, and I think he's probably better at kind of using his pace to take players on. But I think Brian Hill was a bit more of an intricate player. So I think when you're doing like intricate build-up in and around the penalty area, I'd much rather have a Brian Hill there than a Manuel Solomon. I think Manuel Solomon enjoys space a bit more than Brian Hill. I think Brian Hill enjoys playing in the tight-knit spaces. So I think they both have their pros and their cons.
Doesn't Solomon prefer playing in those tight-knit spaces as well?
I think he prefers the space. I think he likes playing a bit more space than Brian Hill, in my opinion, than Manuel, in my opinion, from what I've seen anyway. I think he struggles when he's restricted of space, from what I've seen. So I think physically as well, I think probably Solomon's a bit better physically. He's less likely to get bumped off the ball than Brian Hill. I think Brian
Hill's got a higher ceiling than Manuel.
Yeah, potentially. But I guess Gil can play on the left around the outside, but I think his best performances at Spurs have been on the right, but it's few and far between. He's barely seen any minutes. So I think it's by the by. I think they're very close, but I just struggle to see either of them getting minutes with our options right now. They're literally both third choice in either position.
Yeah.
So and we've got no European football, so I struggle to see where they're getting minutes right now.
I feel so sorry for Bryan Gil. He's always like the last thought at this football club. Every single transfer window. This time he doesn't end up getting his move, even though there were rumours coming into it. But I really believe in his talents. I think he can really excel in an Ange system as well. He was one of the players that I was really excited to see what he could do in an Ange Postecoglou system. And it's a bit frustrating that we are kind of like overstocked in these areas now. And there will be players, most likely Solomon and Gil, that are not going to see many minutes this season. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how Perisic kind of unfolds during the season, because he ain't getting any younger, so I can't see him getting better throughout the season. So I think what you're seeing with Perisic now is probably what you're going to get, and he's probably only going to get worse from here on out. So there could be a possibility throughout the season at one point that one of these players does overtake Perisic. But right now, obviously, no one will, because Perisic is showing good level.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just going to be very difficult. I think it's going to be very difficult to break into the team. And as well, that even if they are going to get minutes, it's going to be as subs as well. I just see very little starting opportunities. And that's really where you get to show your stuff. I mean, yes, you can have good cameo appearances, but unless you're absolutely killing it in these cameo appearances to earn a start, it's going to be very difficult to break into the first team and via that. So unless there are injuries and stuff, I think there's going to be very little opportunities for these guys.
Yeah, well, look, it's a long season ahead. Many things can happen. You never know, an injury can happen to a player and someone can take their chance in the team and stuff like that. Many things happen like this during a season, so we never know. But I really want to see Bryan Gil get his chance this season. I really do, because I think he can take it. I really believe in his qualities. But in terms of the strikers, we are in dire straits with the striker situation. We've got Richarlison and Veliz. We know Veliz ain't going to be having a look in first half of the season. So really, we're looking at Richarlison and Heung-min Son potentially. Do you think it's going to come to a situation where Heung-min Son is going to take that spot of Richarlison?
If it keeps going like this, 100%, I would already drop Richarlison and play Son there, just based on what I've seen from Son centrally in his limited minutes compared to what Richarlison has been getting in his 70 long minutes in the first few games of the season. I think Son has probably shown more in his little cameo centrally than Richarlison has all season. So for me, I definitely see a situation where Son can overtake him, but I'm still, look, I think Richarlison will start on the weekend, and I still hope and I still believe he can turn it around. I still think there's a good player in there. So I believe Richarlison, look, he's shown in the Premier League he can be a double-digit goal-scoring striker, and that's all we need. We don't need a striker who's going to hit 30 goals. He just needs to be contributing and hitting 10 goals a season. At the moment, if we can share the goals around, that will be enough, but he has to be showing so much more than what he's showing now, because right now, he's just a bit of a liability to the team in our build-up. When the ball gets to him, we lose it every time. He gives the ball away too early, and he is missing chances at the moment. That is a big problem. Now, he does come with his qualities. He stretches teams, he runs in behind, and he's a bit of a nuisance for opposition. So hopefully, if he can start adding that quality to his game, which I know he has, I don't know. I can't keep blaming confidence. At some point, you have to say, like, when it's been going on for this long, maybe this is just what he is at the moment. So I'm going to keep giving him the benefit of the doubt. But if this goes on for too much longer, this level of performance, I'm not even interested in just the goals. It's just the level of performance that I'm really disappointed in and really frustrated in. And I think you can see Ange getting frustrated with it as well. So that just needs to really change, and he has to believe in that. But I think he's a good player, and I think I back him to turn it around. If he can do, we shouldn't have too much of a problem. And as you say, Son can play that role. So do we have enough long term? Considering we sold Harry Kane this summer, you look at those forward options and you are struggling a bit to be happy with it. But I do think there's enough goals in this team to at least get us through this season.
You say that you would have moved Son there already with what Richarlison has shown in the first few games. How long do you think Ange gives it?
Well, there's an international break, so it's hard to know what's going to happen after that. But I think he's already considering it, to be honest. I think he's already considering dropping Richarlison with what he's shown, because Son can just do simple things like get a layoff to a teammate and hold the ball up and link play effectively without giving the ball away constantly. And I think he's already thinking about dropping him, but I do think that goal will just about keep him in the team this weekend. But I honestly think if he has another shocking performance this weekend, I think he has to come out of the team. And I'm sorry to say that, and I don't want to kill his confidence, but I just think at the end of the day, Ange just has to do what's best for the team. And if Son can provide that role and we can have someone who can do a job out wide, that has to be it. And that's not to say that Richarlison is never going to get back in the team, because of course there'll be opportunities. But I think it's a big game tomorrow for Richarlison. He has to start showing more quality. Otherwise, for me, he comes out the team.
Just a little update. Hugo Lloris has turned down Nice, by the way.
What?
He's turned them down.
What are you doing, Hugo?
But, by the way, Ange Postecoglou's embargoed section of the press conference is live on the channel right now. And one thing that was said on there is that he was talking about Hugo Lloris, and he said, even if Hugo Lloris stays, he will not be registered for the Premier League squad. So having said that, let's have a look at this next graphic we've got and see where we're at in terms of foreign quota, homegrown quota. So we're only allowed 17 foreign players or non-homegrown players. And so far we've got 18 now, because Lloris has been ruled out pretty much. So one of these players is going to have to miss out. And that one player is obviously going to be Tanguy Ndombele, isn't it?
Yeah. So Lloris is leaving. So if you say take Lloris out there, at the moment it's going to have to be Ndombele, because I think Dyer, as much as I would like to leave him out, there might be a situation when we need him, unfortunately, because of the situation we've left ourselves at centre back. Same with Sanchez, so I can't see him being left out. I think it'll be too harsh on Bryan Hill because he's been injured, so you can't just leave him out or leave him out. And then everyone else is a valuable member of the squad, so it just leaves Ndombele, and I think the situation will be he'll be the one left out, in my opinion.
And also we're overly stocked in that position as well.
Exactly. So he's not a necessity. So I think Ndombele will be left out, and then that leaves him in a situation where if he's not in the squad and doesn't even have the possibility to play, even if he could train as hard as he wants and then be the best player in training, but if he's left out of the squad, he can't physically be picked. So at that point, surely he's got to reconsider not moving to other teams, and he has to make some sort of compromise just so he can get on the pitch. And at that point, surely Turkey or Saudi has to become a bit more of an attractive option for him.
In terms of the homegrown players, we need 8. We've currently got 9, with Fraser Forster, Ben Davis, Maddison, Whiteman, Austin, Sessegnon, Skip, White and Johnson. Johnson was a valuable pickup because we needed, maybe not for this season, but definitely for future seasons. And you can see why we were desperately going to try and get homegrown players on the last day of the window. When you're looking at it, out of all of those homegrown players, who's going to be here in a year's time? Because Forster might not be. If you bring that up again, Forster might not be. Harvey White most definitely will not be. Sessegnon probably won't be. Austin and Whiteman won't be. So that leaves us with, and Ben Davis might not even be, but let's assume Ben Davis will be. You got Davis, Maddison, Skip, and Johnson. And there's even question marks about Skip as well, to be honest. But let's assume that he will be here. So that's 4 players.
Yeah, and it was interesting because Postecoglou was asked about that in his press conference. I think it was Alistair Gold said, you've been seemingly targeting only homegrown players in this deadline day. Is that something you're focused on, essentially? And he said, we have the homegrown numbers at the moment, but we have to be looking at the future, and we have to be thinking about not just this window and this summer, but future summers as well. And yes, we have 8 kind of homegrown players right now, but that might not be the case in a year's time. And we have to start thinking about the future, and we might be in a situation where we need homegrown players. So that has to be the focus right now. So I think it makes sense that we're going for homegrown. I think Brennan Johnson, obviously, that's part of the reason we went for him. Yeah, and I can't see too many of them being part of it. But then again, maybe some other, maybe I'm trying to think of any youth players who might be not homegrown,
not homegrown,
as in who are not homegrown now, who might go into homegrown. But I don't think any of them right now are in that boat. You have to be 21 and moving to 22 next summer. So I don't think anyone's really in that boat right now. So,
and we're actually lucky that Pape Sarr and Udogie are only 20. because they would have taken up a foreign quota in the squad. But next season is probably their last season of being in the under-21s. So we've got another season to worry about that. But homegrown quota for next season is going to be a problem.
It's definitely going to be a problem. So, look, for now, it's okay. It's okay for now in the short term, and we can get through the season with the numbers. But next season, it's definitely going to provide big issues if we're not sorting that issue out. So, if we're going to be going for more signings in January, I think expect them to be homegrown, to be honest.
They're going to have to be, because, like I said, half of these players are going to be leaving next summer, if not the summer after. So it's going to be very worrying in terms of going into next season. But look, in terms of this season and the squad, has what you think that we can achieve changed at all?
I said before the season, 5th place. And I think we can achieve it, but we just have to be lucky with injuries, and that's not something you want to rely on, because we know definitely, like Spurs historically, and most clubs, to be honest, historically, that you pick up injuries. That's just a natural part of the game, isn't it? You have to expect injuries, and you have to kind of plan for that. Obviously, when an injury crisis happens, then you just got to consider that unlucky. But we don't even need an injury crisis to be in trouble. We're one or two injuries from relying on players who really don't fit the system, especially in defence. So that is a concern. I am really happy with the starting 11. I think we have a really good 11. And considering we're not in Europe and we're out of the cup as well, we should be able to manage, hopefully, the season with that starting 11. And if we have to make one or two changes, hopefully not at centre-back and maybe other positions, I think we can handle that. For example, let's say Porro gets injured, I think we can handle that. Let's say we get an injury to midfielder, I think we can handle that. It's not a big problem. If we do get injury...
Maybe Basuma.
Basuma's probably, would be a big problem. But even a winger, if we get an injury to a winger, I don't think it's going to be disastrous. But if we do get a big injury to a centre-back, it will hurt us. And I think, not to say that we're going to completely collapse as a team just because we're playing Sanchez, but there will be games where it will be a tight game and maybe we're the better team, but we haven't put away our chances, we're only 1-0 up or something, and then they might make a mistake and they might cost us a goal and we drop points, and that might happen if they get an extended run of the team. That's what I'm worried about. So has my expectations wildly changed because of this window? They haven't wildly changed. I'm less confident of getting top 4 potentially than if we would have addressed these issues. I still think we're going to be I still really believe we can challenge for a top 5 place, and if 5th in Champions League, that's a good achievement. So I don't think it's wildly changed, but I definitely think on my expectations taking a bit of a hit because those key areas just haven't been addressed.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. I would say if we get an injury for the odd game here, odd game there, it's not going to be such a big problem. But if it's any extended amount of time, that's when the problems really start for us. And I'm looking at centre-back and left-back. I think we can maybe cover it everywhere else on the pitch except for centre-back and left-back. And when you see how bad that defence was last season, you would have thought they would really try and shore up that defence they've shored up the starting defence, because you've got Destiny, who's brand new. You've got Pedro Porro, who he brought in last January, and you've got Van de Ven as well, who's brand new. So they've done it to a certain extent, but they could have pushed the boat out a bit and got us some cover as well, because like we keep saying, any sort of injuries in the back line, left back or centre back, I think it's going to be troublesome for us. And I still think we can finish 5th if we get lucky with those injuries and don't have long-term injuries in the back line.
Yeah.
But Sanchez can come in on the odd game here, odd game there, and do a job. We've seen him do that before. So it's going to be worrying. It's going to be worrying going into the season, and hoping every time a player goes down injured on the pitch now, we're just going to have our hearts in our mouths.
Especially defenders.
And you look at it already. In the first 3 games of the season, Romero went off with concussion and Van de Ven was hobbling off at Fulham. So we've already had 2 scares. You would have thought that was the moment where they would think, all right, come on, we need to go get it now.
Yeah, 100%. We needed a complete revamp. That's what was required of the backline. The backline was so bad last season. It wasn't just like a standard season defensively where we had a bit of defensive trouble. It was a complete mess. We had so many problems last season defensively. They were just not fit for purpose whatsoever. It wasn't a case of like they had some good games and stuff. It was atrocious. It was our worst ever defensive season in the Premier League. It was that bad. So that requires a major revamp. And yes, you could argue, oh, you can't get all done in one window, but that was what was required because of the situation we've been left in. It wasn't a situation where we can let this fester for another season. It had to be dealt with this summer as a matter of urgency. This was an urgent matter to deal with, and they've neglected it, and that's the most disappointing thing. So, look, we'll have to just wait and see what happens with our centre-backs and just hope that they stay injury-free. I believe Sanchez, if we have to rely on him, and as long as we have majority of the rest of our starting 11 okay, like I think we can handle that, not to the same extent as like he'll be brilliant, but I think if he has to have a run in the team, I'm not happy about it, but I'm not overly concerned about it as long as it's not too much of a stretch. But if Dyer is, I am, because I think he's just a natural target which people are going to look to exploit. And then past that, well, obviously we have no one, but that's just the worry. If Van de Ven gets injured, we have no natural left centre back. Do you reckon Davis gets there ahead of Dyer?
Well, I think Sanchez will probably be the first one, but if you're asking me between Davis and Dyer, I think Davis, yeah.
Yeah, I think Davis is probably a better fit, as much as he would also be a problem. So, look, what would you rate the overall then, if you're looking at the window? And you'll have to give him the window out of 10. Let's say that whatever's happened now happens. It doesn't look like any more deals are happening tonight. To be honest,
let's call it what it is. So outgoings: Winks and Kane on permanence. Loans to Rodon, Spence, Reguilon, and Tanganga. Tanganga has a potential obligation.
We just got the tweet from Ali Gold.
Oh, he's got it now.
We just got the tweet.
What, 6 minutes to deadline?
6 minutes to. Looks like Spurs incomings are done with Brendan Johnson's arrival. Strange window on the face of it. If they're sold one of their greatest players, Postecoglou claims all of their transfer business was with Kane's departure in mind. They've strengthened in some areas, wherever he goes into a breakdown the window. But anyway, the main thing is, yeah, everything looks like it's done.
Yeah. All right. So Winks, Kane, sales, Rodon loan, Spence loan, Reguilon loan, Tanganga loan. Tanganga can turn into an obligation. Reguilon most likely is going to be back here in January. And where does that leave him? Obviously, we're going to have to try and ship him off in January. Incomings are Vicario, Van de Ven, Maddison, Brennan Johnson, Solomon, Valise, and Phillips. If I'm looking at that and giving it a rating, we've lost our best player in our lifetime. Mm-hmm. So that's a massive down mark, obviously. Brought in Van de Ven, which has sorted out the left centre-back situation. We've brought in a goalkeeper, which has sorted out that situation. Maddison is an unbelievable signing. Brennan Johnson I'm happy with, but I wouldn't call it like an unbelievable signing. So I think Vicario, Van de Ven and Maddison I'm extremely delighted with. Johnson I'm happy with. The jury's out with Solomon, Valise and Phillips.
Yeah.
I'm unhappy with the outgoings because I thought we need to get more permanents out there than loans because we're just in the same situation as we are next season. So I'm not looking at this transfer window that positively, to be honest. I'm looking at it 4.5, 5, maybe, something like that.
Well, I did the calculate. I know Brains did calculations before, but I did it as an average in my head. If I'm looking at the incomings, I gave it, if I gave two separate ratings for incomings and outgoings. Incomings, I gave it a 7 out of 10. Which would have been obviously a lot higher if we would have got a centre-back or a midfielder or maybe another striker. But I gave the incomings for who we brought in a 7 because I like the incomings. Yes, the jury's out on Solomon, Valise and Phillips. Have to wait and see on them. But I do like that. I think Maddison, Van de Ven, Vicario and Johnson, especially the other three, are really going to make a major impact on our first team. And that's not hard to do in one window, to make 3 major impacts on your first team. So I think that's good.
And actually, I think Maddison, I'll even go to say that he could be value signing of the window out of the whole Premier League.
He could potentially be a 10 out of 10 signing, to be fair, just him alone. So I've given incomings and out of 10, but I've given outgoings as 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
And the only positive is Winks was a good fee, and we probably did well to get 100 million for Harry Kane given the circumstances. But at the end of the day, we did sell our best player. All the others have been loans, and we haven't been able to shift the crucial players to shift, which are Dyer and Sanchez, out of this club to allow for more incomings. So we haven't been able to shift in Ndombele. There's been, Lloris has somehow lasted till deadline day still at this club.
The geezer literally, they said it on the website. I don't think they've ever done this before with any other player. They said it on the website. He's being left off the tour so he can explore transfer opportunities. And how is it past the deadline and we still haven't sorted out transfer for him?
Exactly. So So if I take those two ratings, 7 for an incomings and 2 for outgoings, that's 9 out of 20. If you put out 10, 4.5, and that's what I've given it, a 4.5 out of 10, and that's very disappointing.
I got there with all that without all that calculation.
You felt it, and I logically did it in my head. But there you go.